I just got fired from my dream job and I want to talk about it. Let's revert back to how I got this job in the first place, which was not even a year ago. I was working at restaurants. I was not very happy at this restaurant that I was working at, despite having had so much fun in other restaurants, more local and family-oriented ones that I have worked in the past. But at this restaurant, I was very discontent and was absolutely catching the contagious bad attitudes from my peers. And I realized that in me doing so, in me feeding into the negativity and just the low vibe and frequencies that were emitted amongst other servers, I realized that if I wanted to change my reality, I would have to change the inside of what is making my reality possible, which is how I was feeding my mind. So in February of 2025, I had heard for the first time, or at least in this way, about the laws of karma and emptiness. And this is all thanks to the philosophy that I've been studying very lately at Three Jewels Studio in the Lower East Side. So I was attending a class by Hector Marcel, the president of Three Jewels, and he basically told me that if you're not happy with your life, that's on you, boo. And the good news is that you can do something about it. All you have to do is rigorously check the thoughts in your head, the words that you speak, and the actions that you do in the real world. Now, you want to start with the thoughts because they create what you say and what you ultimately do, which creates the habits, which creates your life. I'm sure we've heard some iteration of that quote. But I realized that me talking trash about my general manager at the restaurant, let's call her Sheila, wasn't helping my ultimate goal of becoming an artist come true. In fact, every time I'd go to work and wonder what Sheila was up to and what kind of hellhole she was going to put me in, because clearly it was all her fault that I wasn't enjoying my job. So, step one of finding a new job was to trick myself into loving my job. And I did that by being really nice to Sheila, but also chatting to Sheila in my head as if we were girlfriends, right? So, in real life, I would just be like, "What's up, Sheila? How are you doing today?" Or maybe a little bit more formal. I was like, "Good morning, Sheila. Nice to see you today." But in my head, I'd be like, "Oh, Sheila, you look so good today. Pink is really your color. How are the girls? What did you do this weekend?" And I would just like shoot these nice thoughts, these friendly thoughts to her as I would walk by. Another thing I would do while working at this restaurant is pretend that I wasn't working at the restaurant. I was pretending that I was actually just a patron and that I was walking to the bathroom, back and forth to the bathroom and to my seat. And that I just have to remember to, oh yeah, ask for this table's orders along the way. So I would play these little games. And the most important part of how I changed my job was that I was really, or at least tried to really, really, really be of service to the patrons. And obviously, that is in the title of being a server, but I tried to make them laugh. I tried to make them feel comfortable. This restaurant had a lot of elderly ladies, and I remember just spending more time around their table, and they acknowledged it. They said something about it that I gave them the time, that they wished everyone would just smile a little bit more. So, all this to say is that even though I was working in a position that I was not happy at, and I had been surviving and living off of working at restaurants all my adult life, I didn't mind service work, but I was ready to get out of it. So, by changing my attitude, I was able to raise my vibration, as they say, right? But there's another big key component of what happened in this time to help me attract my now ex-boss. So last spring, 2025, I would say like winter, spring, I was doing a lot of things unpaid. I was volunteering about 3, 4 times a week, or I was in some type of trade, right? So I was doing TA for an improv class, and then I would get to take free improv, or I volunteer at that yoga studio, and then I get yoga. I also was in a 12-week artist way group, which helped me to stay on top of my writing morning pages. But, I think in that container, I also felt pressure to do a bunch of things rather than narrow down and finish one very important thing. So in this timeline, I was doing a lot, but not making much. And I was getting really, really nervous of how the hell I was going to make it in New York City. I had just hit 2 years, I was about to hit 2 years, and I had very little friends. I had spent most of my downtime in AA meetings. But at this point, I was questioning whether or not those meetings were really serving me as I was questioning everything I was telling myself, right? So when I was in such a depth of despair around money, I reached out to a woman. I can't remember if I met her through AA, but she's no longer. And I'm really disrespecting that second A of the whole club right now, but it's okay. I'll share more on other podcasts in the future. But for now, let's just say I met this really incredible astrologer who gave me a beautiful reading that seemed to be fitting, but it just seemed a little too positive for what actually happened in the span of time she projected it to be. So I reached out to her after the projected amount of time ended and said, I can't afford to hire you again, but I'm just in the dumps and have very little hope. And this woman FaceTimed me for an hour and just lit me up with so much inspiration of how much it takes to get from the idea of what you want to getting the thing of what you want. She reminded me that she's been in the city for 20 years. She told me her age, which was 15 more years than what I thought she had. And I just was like, wow, okay, things take time. Good things take time. Don't compare yourself to where you are now to other people's peak parts of their career and know that you can peak and plateau at any moment in time. So, the biggest and most important juicy nugget of wisdom this woman gave me on that call that really cast a miraculous future was this. If you want to get, you need to give. It's as simple as that. And that is a very simplified version of karma, right? And so I was confused because I had nothing. And then I remembered that when I was 25 years old, still very much suffering from an eating disorder, living at my parents' and working a few odd jobs that paid $10 an hour, my life coach at the time thought it would be a good idea for me to join her $10,000 life coaching course. So I did that for a little bit until I couldn't afford to do it anymore, but I still remembered a lot of what we learned. And I decided that I would take those tools and all the other tools I've learned in the decade since, well, or so, that maybe I could help others. Maybe I could start my coaching business again. And so I reached out to some people from the yoga studio and from the Artist Way group and offered them free coaching just for an exchange of a testimonial. So I had 4 women, a total of 8 hours. And by the end of it, I didn't even care for the testimonials. I just felt really good. I felt like other things were starting to pop up because within those few weeks of working for those women, a regular at the restaurant caught my eye. And this regular, the first time that she came in, she asked for my name, which was rare. And I thought that was so kind of her. And for many, many weeks, she ordered the same thing: 3 glasses of rosé, a salmon, and steamed asparagus, followed up by an Americano. I still remember. And one day I just asked her, what do you do for a living? And she goes, I'm a life coach. And I thought, no kidding. Do you need help? Do you need an assistant? Do you need back end? Tell me more. And so we set up a coffee, and turns out we had a lot in common, and that she wanted to finally promote and produce her podcast. So it turns out everything she needed, I knew how to do. And we started slow. And by August of 2025, I was able to quit the restaurant job and go full term in this business. And she also helped me find another client and then another little client. But I will say I'm so, 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 so grateful. And I hope this part of this story of this podcast gives you this sense of what is possible when you really just try to serve without any expectation of getting anything back. Because I had prayed to God to find a $1,000 client. I don't know how that was going to look. I just wanted to manifest $1,000 that month. And what I got was some security with someone who could provide me with a lot of work, consistent work. And I was also coaching them on their business in tandem. So it did seem too good to be true. Um, Not only had I manifested this dream job of working from home and working on Canva and supporting women who are in the wellness and spiritual communities and have a purpose of helping other women. It's not like I was doing branding for candy, which is still cool, but I was doing branding for, and still am doing branding for, women who are helping other women. And that felt purposeful and truly changed the trajectory of my life for a year's time. And I'm, again, so freaking grateful. Now, the thing is, when we think that things can be too good to be true, they might just be. But that's not to say that you can't ride that wave for when good things come. Okay. I had journaled a couple of years past that I wanted a fully expensed trip. I don't know how that was going to look like. I didn't want to be, because I was working some corporate job. I just wanted to go somewhere fully expensed. That could be like a brand trip. I don't know. I didn't know what it was going to look like. And turns out the woman from the restaurant flew me first class for my first time to a few places because she wanted me to film this adventure. And we had the best time. I was on cloud nine. I also was a little dubious of where this was going. Like, this seems like too much, Like, did I deserve this? Because it had only been a few months of working together. But I just had to remind myself that everything that I'm seeing in my existence is for me. And I want you who's listening to this to remember that whenever you see beauty in the world, that is a mirror image of yourself. So take the time to stop and not just smell the roses, but adore them. Next time you see a church door opened, go inside, see the immaculate detail of the structure. And whenever you get to travel to a gorgeous destination, whether you're paying for it or your parents are paying for it or your sugar daddy is paying for it, like, just bask in the fact that you are witnessing this. No one can take that memory away from you. And sometimes if you realize that it's hard for you to receive these kinds of gifts, then ask yourself, why would they have done this if they didn't want you to be happy? Sure, people have other alternative motives, but it's okay to be okay and just appreciate what you have. Because it's not going to last. It's not going to last. And that's something I was telling myself a little too often, so that when it happened, it seemed a little too abrupt. So I want to go into the part of this story where I talk about all the times that I have realized that I needed to leave. If you're listening to this and you're a corporate girly, good for you. I'm sure all of your health stats are up to date and you have great oral health because this homegirl has not seen a doctor in quite some time. I'm just flying on the seat of my pants and praying to the big daddy in the sky. Now, if you're an artist like myself and cannot fathom the idea of working in an office, then you might have bounced around from job to job a bit to bit. And I think there is so much beauty in when we finally get that push to break free and really ask ourselves, why did I stay in this position? And what's holding me back from finally doing that thing I want to do now that I have the time, right? Because there's such a paradox of time, of free time. We want it so badly that when we get it, we don't know what to do with it. And so, one way that I'm going to utilize this new time is to act on the fact that if I want to be an artist, I have to allow myself to be seen. And how else do I allow myself to be seen but to welcome you into my life, welcome you into my head, welcome you into the thoughts I have about a lot of different things that hopefully pertain to you too. I'm thinking into my first job that I ever had, and I want you to think about yours too. And I hope that you were a teenager because, or else your parents didn't do a very good job. Maybe you were even younger than a teenager, and I hope you were treated fairly. But my first job, I was, I guess, a junior in high school. It was a very popular, trendy froyo place, and all my friends worked there. And my parents, my dad really wanted me to work, but I was competitively swimming. Like I was on the track to race in college. So it was really hard for me to find a part-time job outside of practice and school. So I did work a few shifts and then I asked off for homecoming or whatever dance was coming up. And then I got fired. I wasn't upset. I just didn't know how I was going to tell my dad that I got fired for ultimately not being available enough to work. Um, and I don't, the story ends there, but there's been so many times where they've just let me go and it's for something outside of merit. Like one time I had been working at this gym and I was one of the only people there that hadn't already been a member. So they were actually losing money on me because I worked, I got paid like 12 bucks an hour and then I got a free membership. But it was a lot of moms at this gym. So apparently they had seen some mothers work out there and then were like, "Hey, if you want to work for front desk, we'll give you a discount." So I think that alone, I just was hurting the bottom line, but they heard that I had started a yoga teacher training elsewhere and used that as the excuse to boot me, which I couldn't take it personally. I was a little like, oh, okay, there goes that. And then my dad told me to look at the common denominator of times of which I've been fired. So there are many, many other stories, but I feel like jobs truly end when you are ready for them to end as well. Like we all know when it's coming. And when it comes to the boss that just texted me earlier today, if she had all her equipment backed and then many hours later wanted to talk, and then those 2 minutes in which we talked were just thank you, goodbye. I'm realizing that this was coming. This was coming. And I had been waiting for a sign to allow myself to really dive deep into what I want to do, which is share my story. And so I want to end this. I don't know what you call this. We're doing a podcast now, you guys. I just want you to feel like you're hanging out with me, because all we really want and need in life are friends. And I'm going to produce a podcast next on my time of living in New York. And so the next episode I'm going to produce will be about my reflections on living in New York for the past 3 years. I just hit my 3-year mark, and partially how I did not prioritize making friends. And that really kicked my ass because after I had this phone call with my boss, or my ex-boss, I should say, I knew I can't call my mom. I can't call my dad. Um, they won't really have much to offer. And if they are watching this, then I'm sorry, but no amount of comfort that you would try to provide would be the type of comfort that I really need right now, just based on pure history. But I called instead my friend, and I have other friends to call. And I'm still in shock, and I'm still kind of like, whoa, what just happened? Oh, wow. Like my nice cushy job just ripped out of me, and I don't really know what I'm going to do next. The fact that I can just immediately go to someone that's going to make me feel okay, that's going to validate that I did work hard, that's also going to say really nice things that I didn't really have coming up. Like I'm still in this daze of confusion because I thought I had more security. But again, to have done the work that took years' time of finding friends that will really have my back and really know what to say makes me so confident that whatever happens in the next month, 6, 12 from now, this is exactly what was supposed to happen. So I'm going to just share a few things that I do whenever I get fired. Not to say that I get fired a lot, but this list is more for me right now. But I really hope that if you are listening to this and you just got let go, first know that you're okay. You're not the only one who's ever been fired. You probably didn't do anything that bad. You are good at your job. You know, and you can be honest with yourself whether or not it was justified. And doesn't it actually matter if it's justified or not? I think the most important thing we must do is just to say, hey, I did my best and really trust that. The next thing that I would do is take a walk and touch grass, which I could be doing, but I am recording this instead. I would next meditate because duh, and then take out your journal and write down this. Write down everything that you are skilled at. Write down every accomplishment that you've done, your greatest successes. Write down all the things that you want to do that you haven't had time to do because of other obligations. And then write down what you're going to do now that you don't have a job. I would also take this time to reach out to the friends that have ever helped you out, ever paid for your meal, ever given you some cash, and just thank them. Obviously, you want to be more mindful with your spending, but list the ways that you can be generous right now because when you start to feel scarce, you may be more inclined to give less, and that won't help your case. So, how can you give out more time? How can you give out more compliments? How can you give out more service? How can you give out even money when you're feeling tight on it? Because that stuff will come back. Now, I just lost my highest paying client. I still have a couple other income streams. They are small, but I want to create a format where I create free content and then have something behind the paywall. So I am going to end this podcast now and let you know with a little teaser that my paywalled content will include not just more of this and opportunities to do lives. I want to do some live meditations. I'd love to just chat with people, grow a community. That's what I'm trying to create. But behind the paywall, I want to talk about juicy things. I want to talk about the birds and the bees. I want to talk about all the things that my mom has told me I should just keep in my journal. So, with that being said, thank you for listening. My Venmo is at Jennifer Martin Live if you want to send me my lunch money tomorrow. And keep a lookout on the good old Substack because I'm going to create a couple ways for you to help me out as I figure out this next move. But you just listening to this already helps me out. Verbal validation is really nice, but homegirl's got to pay her bills. So if you've made it this far, I love you and you're going to heaven.